What people don't realize is when it comes to LED masks, the quality of the LED and the LED manufacturing is as important as, let's say, the car to a Formula One driver. If you enter a Formula One race on a tricycle, you are wasting your time.
Yeah. 12 years ago, I won the BBC Apprentice and became Lord Sugar's first business partner, which means I gained an investment of £250,000. And working with him, we're trying to make the best quality that you can, but then also make technology accessible. And that's why we started talking.
If you enter the LED market by taking off-the-shelf LEDs without going into this level of knowledge and research to figure out whether it's actually good or not, you're wasting people's time. It is a far better investment than any kind of moisturizer, which will run out at some point, and this will last years. I love the fact that you've just put it on as well. Welcome back to Dog Traps Podcast. Today, I have an incredibly special episode. You've all seen LED masks all over the market, all over the internet, and you're thinking, which one do I buy? Because every company says they're the same. They all look amazing. They've all got snazzy pictures about them and before and afters. And a lot of my videos that I've done have been very objective. I've tried to use numbers because they can't lie and they can't be subject to opinion when you look at energy levels, for instance. And I get, you don't know this, but I get sent devices all the time from many different companies. I won't name them here. I might do a video about that later. And they all say, here, have this for free. Try this out. And every single one I have rejected because it's terrible. And then one day I got sent a prototype of a specific mask. And I thought, okay, this is a game changer. I've got to speak to the people behind this. And that's why today I have Tom Pelleroux. Tom.
Good morning. Good morning, Dr. How are you doing, man?
I'm very good.
This is the culmination of many years
possibly,
of kind of working together, right? Yeah.
So for people that don't know you, because we have an international audience,
yes,
could you give people a little bit of intro as to who you are?
Cool. Thank you. Hello, everybody. So my name's Tom Pelleroux. I'm an engineer. I'm a designer, engineer, techie, geek. I love making things possible. I love helping people out. Fortunately, 12 years ago, I won the BBC Apprentice and became Lord Sugar's first business partner, which means I gained an investment of £250,000 at the time. And I've been working with him for 12 years. And he brought incredible products to market kind of 25 years ago. He was at one stage the UK's biggest supplier of computers through Amstrad. He met with Bill Gates and all that kind of stuff and all that. And then he created Sky, or the boxes for Sky. So he's got his great history of kind of making tech accessible.
Yeah.
And working with him, that's kind of what we're trying to achieve. We're trying to make the best quality that you can, but then also make technology accessible.
Yeah.
And that's why we started talking.
Of course. So people don't know this, but I get asked to consult for many different companies, many different areas, many different fields of medicine all the time. And probably a year and a bit ago, something like that, I got a call from a mutual friend between Tom and I saying, I've got this guy who is interested in getting into the LED market. And I haven't told you this, but my initial thought was, oh, here we go again. So
another guy who'll be trying to flog something onto you rather than listening to you.
And so I thought, okay, fine, I'll have a chat. I didn't think anything of it. But Tom, I could see he was persistent and he was committed and he had the willpower and he had the drive and determination to really do it. Because I could tell from the questions he was asking, and he was looking at the limitations of masks on the market, my criticism, my objective criticisms, not opinions, objective criticisms of LED technology. And we kept talking. I thought, okay, he's genuinely serious about this. And I left him to it and he did it. And then he came back and sent me what we're going to show you today. And one day he sent me an email with some figures. And this is really important. This is how I want you guys to judge products, because when someone says it's great or it's amazing or it will banish that, that is an opinion. Okay. Opinions are biased from paychecks. Numbers are measured objectively. This is really crucial. And he sent me the numbers. He sent me the spec sheet. And I thought, this is incredible. And, it was compared to other masks on the market that you will have heard of as well. And it doesn't just beat them, it beats them by a country mile. And we're going to talk about some of those figures too. So full credit where credit is due. And And one of the reasons I'm doing this video is because Tom can sell this product, but I don't think it does it justice. And I think looking at it in a deep dive like this should give you much more information and should give you trust about a product by meeting the person behind it, because they're not hiding in a factory somewhere because they think they're scamming you. It's a real product. It's a real person. And the numbers speak for themselves, which is why I wanted to do this. So I take my hat off to you, Tom. I genuinely...
It was quite a challenge you laid down.
It was.
And that's kind of how the conversation went, right?
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
we have a fantastic mutual friend, Roy,
Yes.
who introduced us, and he knows that we're both like techie geeks and we love going into the science.
Yeah.
And we had a call, and basically you set me the challenge. You were like, Tom, what you need is a very specific wavelength for your light, for the LEDs. You need to have a high tolerance for that wavelength.
Yeah.
You then need a peak wavelength half max, wasn't it?
Full width half max.
Full width half max.
Yeah.
There's got to be, again, and to a tolerance.
Yeah.
You need to have a maximum, you need to have this peak energy.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just pointless.
Yeah.
Right. And this is what the sort of best in class home product is. And this is what the best in class professional is.
Yeah. Those
And
are the
you need
benchmarks.
Exactly. You need to get over that consumer product. And then basically, Tom, you're not going to be able to do it because the heat, the quality of the LEDs, the companies who are best in class, they've done deals with the LED manufacturers, so you won't be able to get the best in class LEDs. You were kind of like, basically, good luck.
Yeah.
And I'll never hear from you again because it's completely impossible what I'm asking you to achieve.
Yeah.
And then we had also internally set ourselves a benchmark that we want this to be £99.
Yeah.
Because we look across the other ones, £300, £500, £700 masks are fantastic, but that's not accessible.
100% agree.
Even £100 is not accessible.
Yeah.
But at least £100 that will last for years and years and years that you and your partner can use
Exactly.
weekly, daily, however you wish. Like it starts to become comparable with moisturizers, hyaluronic acids,
Exactly.
silic acids. It becomes possible for everyone to have this product.
And that's the perspective I think people should have. It may be £99, but when there are creams that cost more than that, when there are sets of creams that cost the same price or more as well, and you look at the fact that they're not actually doing anything on an intracellular level, they are simply feeding nutrients along with additives, preservatives, all these other things. Whereas this is actually having LED technology specifically, having the ability to reach inside a cell like a hand, move things around and make intracellular processes biochemically happen, which is just incredible. And for that price point, I think the value for money, I'm not going to say it's the best. I'm going to refrain from opinions. What I am going to say is try and find me something that is better value for money. And there's your answer as to whether it's any good.
And what was also amazing about yourself, well, there's a few other things. One is you said, and this is the test center you need to use.
Yeah.
Lux, TSI in Wales. Amazing guys have been down there. We've done all our studies there. You're like, this is which was for me amazing knowledge as well. So like, okay, now we know where we can test, and we don't have to be like that. The second one is you don't have your own brand.
No,
which a lot of people in your position do.
Yeah,
and so therefore, by default, they probably think theirs is the best. So it's not necessarily is impartial, which is wonderful. And we do actually really struggle with this. We like to always develop products with the best in class professionals that we can.
Yeah.
But often we find
you couldn't find one, so you came to me.
Wow, shut up. But we couldn't, but struggling to find one who didn't have their own brand.
Yeah. And a lot of people...
I don't understand why they do that, but it does make it tricky to...
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people on YouTube, I know of specific doctors who have very big affiliations or they make their own. And they're always going to say theirs are the best. And I'm not going to name names here, but I have seen ones where they say this mask is the best because, followed by a claim. And that claim is unsubstantiated. Whereas here, the testing has been done.
And we can also stick to the numbers.
Yes,
so
exactly.
You and I don't have to talk. I can talk about £99.
Yeah.
And then we can then talk about wavelength, tolerance of wavelength, half max.
Exactly.
And I really want to talk to you about energy.
Why don't we start with that then?
Let's start with energy. Because energy, peak power, or irradiance, which is nanowatts per centimeter squared, watts being measure of energy, power, because it's power, because it's energy over time. For my engineering friends, often, and we've got a camera here, haven't we?
Yeah.
Is measured at the peak over the top of an LED.
Yes.
So what you do is you get your sensor, which is a bit like the nub of a pen, and you put it right over the top of an LED.
They won't see that on camera, so hold it in front.
So you then put that, if your LED is it, you then put that right over the top of the LED. You don't put it off to the side. You don't put it off to the other side. You put it right smack over the top.
Yeah.
And then also the diameter of that makes a difference.
100%.
And we found that because it was like when we used a 4 mil diameter, obviously the energy per square centimeter was significantly higher than when we used a 6 or an 8. And then what you then do is you go, okay, well, that is the peak. The mask is so big, it's so many centimeters squared. So we multiply the peak by the total area, and that's then the total energy or the energy per square centimeter. But it's
wrong.
Really not.
It's wrong.
It is correct in the fact that it's the peak.
Yeah.
So it's not, as you say, it's right, but it's wrong.
Yeah. It's mathematically correct.
Yes.
But practically is something different. Yeah.
So we absolutely did that test because it's important to know the peak. But we were also like, okay, well, how can we measure? What people are interested in is the total energy of the mask.
Yeah.
Not the energy per square centimeter, although that is the benchmark. But it's like, if I wear this, how much energy is my skin receiving?
Exactly.
And then luckily, Lux TSI also have that, which is a massive egg.
They do indeed.
It's an enormous internally white egg. And you put the mask in, and then from the sensors inside, you can then measure the total energy output of the mask per second, per minute, which then gives you this total energy, which
is what's important. Yeah. And, I've seen YouTubers, I can't remember one guy, he has a channel, Alex something. He does a lot of red light therapy stuff. Great channel, by the way. And I really respect the guy. But I do professionally and politely believe there's an inherent flaw in the way he's measuring exactly because of what Tom's just described. If you just get a single sensor, put it on your desk and shine something above, you're not actually measuring what is going on. That does not translate to what is biologically going to happen in your face. And a lot of people don't realize this because they think it's a simple, for example, in cricket, when the umpires are seeing if there's enough light to carry on playing, they stand at the wicket and they just hold this thing up to the sun. It gives him a number and they say, okay, there's enough light.
Yeah.
It's fine in that context. Not fine in LED because the face is not.
And the sun is so big.
Exactly.
That it's bigger than the earth and so it's radiant.
100%.
Whereas this, you've got loads of mini suns and you're reading above one sun. You're not reading in the gap between the suns.
Exactly. And the gaps make a big difference, massive difference. People don't really talk about it. And what people don't realize is there is, someone sent me a mask recently where, I can't remember the name of it. It was from some YouTube doctor. And they was talking about it like as if, the gaps in between are controlled so to maximize everything. But there's a way of actually testing whether that's true and it wasn't done. So for me, I don't trust that. But again,
and then the transparency of the silicon helps in some respects because it allows more in, but then also it creates a reflection.
Exactly.
And then using material beside the LEDs to help reflect the light back. And that's also a work in progress. We found a way that we think we can improve that for the next generation.
It's recycling the energy almost to minimize the loss.
How can we bounce that back on? So thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome.
For challenging us. I'm glad we were able to. Are you have we done it?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, when you sent me that email and with the figures on, I thought this isn't going to go well. I'm sorry to admit it, but I didn't think it could be anything good. And then I saw
because we just sent you the raw reports.
Yeah.
Right?
Unedited.
Yeah.
And that was
like, there's no point in me trying to summarize a report and send it to Dr. Az because he'd just say, no, Tom, can I have the full report, please? And can I have Lux TSI in copy so that I know that
all independent. And I was looking at the numbers. I thought, hey, this can't be right.
This can't. Yeah.
At that price point, it's incredible. And
so I've been to LED factories, right?
Yes. Yeah, I've seen the pictures.
And you've seen the videos of me at.
Yeah.
They are cool.
Yeah.
How they make LEDs is
fascinating.
Mental, and the machines that are used.
Yeah.
And then the fact that, so obviously also we tested 3 masks and gave we're also able through this specialist factory that they are testing every single, have I told you this? They're testing every single LED that is in every mask, that is in every production
and they
batch.
categorize them into how good they are.
And then they can get rid of that. But we therefore can give a report of, the 1,000 masks that we've made. Here is the data set of 360 times 1,000, 306,000 lines of code, which gives the actual wavelength of it, the output of it as well, and the voltage to check that the voltage is working correctly, and then any that have been rejected, which I didn't realize was feasibly possible. The speed at which this machine moves is insane.
It's massive. And I think what people don't realize is when it comes to LED masks, the quality of the LED and the LED manufacturing is as important as, let's say, the car to a Formula One driver. If you enter a Formula One race on a tricycle, you are wasting your time. If you enter the LED market by taking off-the-shelf LEDs without going into this level of knowledge and research to figure out whether it's actually good or not, you're wasting people's time. And you can mask, no pun intended, you can mask that over the consumer by using tests which manipulate the way the readings are made, so that the statements of joules per square centimeter looks amazing, but it's actually nonsense, which is why you cannot just use the numbers. There are other objective measures as well, and the quality of the LEDs, everything. And, I'm going to mention another brand here. Another brand that I've always spoken about is Dermalux. And I think you are up there with Dermalux now.
Wow.
Certainly
the results are,
and the thing is with Dermalux, as incredible as I think they are, and yet, objectively speaking, there's things which no one can touch them on, which we can go into if you want, but they're on a completely different price point.
1,500 for the sort of home?
I think the home Dermalux Flex is probably about £1,900, possibly a bit more in dollars with the currency difference or whatever. And the full clinical version, the TriOPMD, I think is ballpark figure about £20,000. So it's a lot. And
it's enormous.
It is very big. And
you're not using that at home.
Exactly. And it's big for a reason, it's expensive for a reason, and it's perfectly valid. But it's not in the hands of the regular people, shall we say.
And I think one of the things that maybe took you by surprise is how rapidly LED technology has improved.
Even over the past 5 years, it's huge.
Exactly, because at first you were like, Tom, this is impossible. Dermalux and other brands are taking the creme de la creme of the LEDs, and you won't be able to get them. Right? But the Taiwanese especially have improved the quality and the repeatability and the production speed of the LED manufacturing and the tolerance of them that we were able, because originally you were like, you need this wavelength with this tolerance. And you were like, but you'll never get that. So I'll allow you, I think you said 5, but I'll allow you 7. And we've got 2.5. You said plus or minus 5, which is actually 10. Right. But we've got plus or minus 2.5. So we're
incredible.
Within 5, and most of them are within 3. And I don't think you were like, no, this is impossible. Which is, and you know this, right? But can you tell people about the chip versus the LED? Because I think it's really important that when people see that block on a thing, that's not really the LED.
No.
That's the holder of the LEDs. And the LED, sorry.
No, go for it. So you go for it. I think people will be interested to hear from you.
So an actual LED is basically about a 2 mil length, 1 mil, 2 mil length of hair. Right? You almost can't actually see it on the chip. You can then have chips that can hold either 1 strand of hair in it, or 3 or 4 or 8.
They're always there's always new numbers.
There's always multiples of them up. But it's actually the little strand of hair across the chip that makes the LED light. And following your advice, we've not done any of the other colors apart from red at the specific frequency, near infrared, and blue. So the 3 different tiny little hairs on the one chip. So when you see 120 chips, you're like, that's 120 LEDs. No, you then multiply that by 3 to get you 360. And then what is then, I'm not sure, but it is a fact that, if you then put yellow on that chip as well, and
green,
green, which questionable results, you're then like adding an extra 120, so you can then claim it's 480, say.
But it's not actually that. It's a prime example of manufacturers manipulating numbers and statistics by not giving them in the proper way, which I've tried to do many times on this channel.
Yes.
And I still get comments of people saying, "Oh, you're biased." Like, no, this is an unbiased look. This is the way you judge things without using an opinion. And what people don't realize is multiple LEDs can go on one chip. You have chips with a single LED or 4. They're probably the most common used nowadays for most applications. But there are difficulties with that. And you can get more LEDs on a single chip, which a lot of LED manufacturers do in this industry.
Yeah.
And they do that because it's cheaper. But the problem there is thermal independence.
Yeah.
And so when one of the LEDs is working on that chip and it is generating heat as a byproduct of non-radiative recombination, in fact, no, forget I said that. That's too complicated for this, but we'll go into recombination rates. But it's generating the heat.
Yes.
It has a knock-on effect because we have a statistic here called thermal conductivity, which is called a K value. And that leaches onto the next LED in the same chip.
Yes. Although it is a lot less than we previously thought, right?
Yeah, it's getting better all the time.
So we've tripped onto a couple of topics there. Firstly is the number of chips does not dictate the number of LEDs, right? However, if something says it's got 120 LEDs, it might actually only have 60 chips.
Yeah.
And you do want as many chips as you can because the more chips you have, the less gap in between.
Exactly.
So fundamentally, you want both. So you want, I don't know, your opinion on how many chips you think you suggested to us that we should have at least 120 chips, right? And that 60 and 80 chips, which other brands have, it's like when they've got one on the nose, you're like,
exactly. Waste
really?
time.
And none around the lip.
Why would you want this bit of skin to improve and nothing else around it?
I know. The nose is a really difficult area.
Yeah.
And in this first mask, we have not resolved it as well as I would like to. And our future masks, we will get that better.
To help you out there.
Yes.
I don't think anyone has perfected the nose.
Thank you. Yeah. And also the middle of this area around here.
Extreme curvatures and concavities are extremely difficult.
Yeah.
The only way really to send light around or any kind of photon around a bend typically is using something like fiber optic material.
Yeah.
Hence why we use it for internet cabling and things like that. And in lasers, the fiber optic goes whatever direction you want to reach over the patient.
Yeah.
But you can't just have a load of fiber optics coming out like that onto a patient's face. And so I don't think people should look at any mask, and say, well, it's not brilliant over the nose, I'm going to ignore it. That's not a bad manufacturer. That's a problem of physics right now.
Currently. And shape and that. And I look forward to showing our designs on future. It won't be available for quite a long time because it's really difficult.
I'll set you some more challenges for the next
one. Thank you. And then the next was we were talking about heat.
Yes.
And energy loss as a result of having more than one LED on a chip.
Yeah.
And your feeling to me was, Tom, it's just not possible to have 3 LEDs on one chip and you not lose a huge amount of the energy to heat.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to have holes on the back to open it up. You're going to have one of those things you have in computers to transfer heat sink away and metal and that sort of stuff. I was like, okay, well, God, that sounds pretty tricky. But it wasn't there, right? The heat loss or the heat creation really hasn't been there. And I think the Taiwanese and
they've developed very well.
They've done an amazing job, and that's the reason why they're the leaders of all the chips and in the world. And their fab plants are just insanely incredible. Billions and billions of dollars they've plowed into that.
Yeah.
We have stuck though to the 3 to ensure, but I was amazed at how much when we have all 3 on, it didn't kill the energy content of the other one. Like they didn't all then down. It did actually increase and top.
Yeah, I think people don't realize how important heat is in managing an LED device. People can talk about how much energy is put out. They can talk about number of chips, number of LEDs, whatever.
Yes.
But the problem is you can't necessarily mathematize heat dissipation. And so manufacturers find it very easy to not really show off about that. But actually, if you don't have I'm going to get a little bit technical here because people need to see the full story. When we are producing radiation inside what is called a quantum well structure, we're getting into quantum electrodynamics now. This is my brain is on fire now. I love this. But we have something called a quantum well structure. And here, what is happening is the movement of electrons Okay. And what happens is we have these valence bands that they're traveling between. And when the electron jumps into a hole, to put it into layman speak, and we produce a photon of radiation, that's what we call radiative recombination, sorry. Sometimes this happens and we don't get a photon produced. This is non-radiative. This is where the energy is going into heat instead. And we can look at things like Shockley-Reed Hall recombination and calculate all these radiative recombination rates and things like that. But essentially, if you are not controlling the jumping of an electron into a hole properly, in such a way that you are maximizing the amount of that connection, so that as much of it as possible produces a photon and as little of it as possible produces heat, then you're maximizing the efficiency of that quantum well structure that's inside the actual semiconductor. And because that is complicated to understand for me, that's the basic understanding, by the way. So because that's impossible to understand for pretty much every member of the public, because they're not a physicist, and also most manufacturers, and the fact that you cannot show the efficiency of that as a number necessarily, it's just not in any marketing. You never see it anywhere. But it's true. It's real. I've written a book about this. It's not out yet, but I have.
And what is the test for that? And is it heat? Sorry, first question. Is it linearly heat dependent?
No.
So it's a vicious cycle. So it's not a vicious cycle, because I'd sort of imagine that as the product got hotter, the output gets worse.
It can do. It's not necessarily a straight line because it depends on doping mechanisms that you use. So we're not talking about athletics here, because I know people will think about that. Doping in terms of what you're using to manipulate the ratio between electrons and holes in that substance.
Okay.
And depending on which dopants you use, you can generate different types of radiation as well, and different semiconductors.
Okay. So it's not a linear relationship towards heat, but I presume it gets worse the hotter it is.
Absolutely.
So it is a kind of escalating.
It can get worse, yes.
It gets worse and worse, because the hotter something gets, the hotter it gets, right? Is the first question. The second question is, how do you test that? And is it on the LED itself?
It's very difficult to get an exact number.
Yeah.
Because different people use different doping agents, different semiconductors, different housings, different chips, etc., different PCB designs.
Because it's hugely dependent not only on the LED, but also the chip, and then the wiring going to the chip.
Everything. That's why you can't do studies on nutrition.
Okay.
Because everyone's got a different lifestyle, different amount of sunshine, different medication, different height, different weight, different metabolic base rate. It's impossible.
Yeah.
All we can do is get a rough idea.
Okay.
And, through education of semiconductors, for example, quantum wells, difference between radiative and non-radiative recombination, valence bands, Shockley-Reed Hall recombination, all these sorts of things.
Yeah.
People can get a better understanding. But most people, I believe, don't have the willpower to sit and really dive into quantum electrodynamics for those reasons, and semiconductor physics.
But the ultimate measure, though, is the amount of light energy that a mask is producing.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
Which is the output of.
Yeah.
So whilst we can go into the detail of that sort of thing, ultimately the proof is in the pudding in terms of actually how many photons or light energy is being produced.
And you can infer the heat from that, because if you look at the way the output of the mask reduces over time, if you've got a graph like this, and the energy is very high to start with, and then it just goes like that, the heat's killed it.
Yes.
Something is killing it.
Yes.
Whereas if it just goes like that, and maybe it's not a flat line, maybe it's a slight dip like that, which is perfectly acceptable, that tells you about the ability of that semiconductor housing to continue outputting.
And I think that was also a surprise in the fact that the output didn't go down almost at all.
Yeah.
Because we were originally asked by Lux how, at what time do you want us to measure the testing? And I think you were like, well, you should measure it at the end of the period, the 10,
the
15
total
minutes,
thing,
to kind of do it so that we're not, you're not measuring it right at the beginning where maybe it's cooler and it's not that powerful. And I need to double check, but I've got a feeling it didn't make any difference.
Yeah.
They were actually surprised why we were even asking it, because they were like, modern LEDs, they don't get hot. And I was like, okay, but we need to check this.
You have to prove it.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's important. So a lot of manufacturers, even if they give the number, which is good. Like, we want objective numbers so you can compare.
They might measure it at the beginning or at the end.
There we go.
And the thing.
There we go.
And I want to say as well, you pushed us to then, once we'd got our figure, to then also measure against 6 others
Yes.
in terms of this total energy.
Yes.
Right. And we've got an infographic for you, which shows all the key things that you wanted in terms of the wavelength. Sorry, I'm just
Okay. So what we'll do, we'll try and get this infographic on screen. I'll give it to my editing team, Longwave Digital here.
What you really pushed us to do is to get independent testing of
Yes.
the total energy or radiometric flux,
Yeah.
milliwatts of ours, and then using the same equipment against 5 or 6 other competitors of similar sort of price point, from the kind of, up to sort of £500 kind of thing. We then also use that and compared that with the wavelengths and the peak power and the price and the number of LEDs and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Now, I want to be clear, this infographic, the wavelength, the peak power, the price, the number of LEDs, we've taken from their website.
Yeah. Which is fair enough. Yeah.
Right.
Exactly
And their published data. And you'd imagine also it's their best published data.
Exactly.
Sort of thing. But the total energy output, which is on the top, was tested. Now, we only bought one of a competitor product.
Sure.
We haven't specifically named who the competitor product is. We put a little info, you can sort of tell maybe from the picture.
Yeah.
But it was independently done. We've got the data for that. And then could you please talk us through that result?
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't know the numbers off the top of my head.
Do you want to?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's have a little look here. So I want to stress that these numbers are not what Tom has measured. It's not what I have measured. It's done independently, and the lab used is called Lux, or LUXTSI, Tango Sierra India. They are, as far as I'm aware, the most highly experienced lab in the country for doing this kind of lighting testing. So they know absolutely what they're talking about.
One of the guys has a patent from 20 years ago from one of these, and developed a company which was sold to a German manufacturer. And he's been doing it. And then from that, they then pivoted into testing, because they were like, we couldn't find anyone to test.
Yeah.
So we're like, actually, this is really becoming a thing, and also lighting in architecture and all that.
Absolutely.
So that's what they specialize in.
Yeah.
And what they've been
They do nothing else but lighting testing.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you the StylePro numbers at the end, but I'll go through the competitors first. So competitor number 1, and again, you might recognize this from the picture of the mask. That was 313 milliwatts in terms of radiometric flux. Competitor number 2, it was 52. That's appalling, frankly. Competitor number 3, 644. So the best one so far. Competitor number 4, 522. Competitor number 5, utterly the most embarrassing result I think I've ever seen. In fact, no, the most embarrassing one was 0.2, which was just horrendous, which is basically standing in front of under a light bulb in someone's lounge, I think. But the number 5, which I think you'll recognize from the picture, is 10. So not even triple figures.
And this is the total energy. This is putting the mask in the egg, measuring the total energy of it, not the kind of per square centimeter, that sort of stuff, although that figure is down there.
Everything coming out of it.
And also, this is on a comparable mode, right?
Yeah.
So obviously, the most masks have 3 to 6 modes. This was on the kind of most powerful mode, the kind of base red.
Give me what you got. Show off for me.
Exactly. We're not trying to compare their lowest energy mode with our highest energy mode.
And I've seen people in comments and videos trying to do that.
And you were very specific about that, Tom. And it was like, but it's the total energy across because often with, say, red, it looks red, but it's got red and near infrared and another near infrared in combination. It's the total energy. We do also have the output energy of just red.
Yeah, to compare those.
Which we compare, which actually makes some of them look even worse.
Yeah. So this is being kind.
Trying to be as fair and as independent as possible.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Obviously, I also own a company, so,
which is why independent testing is what I advised you to do. So StylePro, they got 1,607. So it is an order of magnitude higher. It's literally got an extra digit in front of it compared to all the other competitors. And again, this is independent. This is numbers. There's no opinion, no bias. Feel free to look for one in this price point, which has a higher number. If you can find one, comment down below.
Yeah.
Right now, I personally don't know of anything that is even in the same ballpark as that.
Thank you. And thank you so much for forcing us to do that.
Yeah.
And I must admit, it was quite a risk because these tests these tests are not cheap, as you might imagine.
I know.
And also testing other people's products is not cheap, and you've got to buy them, and all that sort of stuff. Now, also, I should stress that was only one competitor product we were testing.
Yeah.
It was bought on the market, and so we presume
they're all the same.
They're all the same.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
and you've also given me a list of some other ones you'd really like us to test, which we will do, and we will continue to do so.
So I know people in the comments are going to possibly ask which masks they are in that infographic. I don't work for Tom, and I'm not as part of the company. So as an independent person, I can answer that. But Tom has to stay professional, and he can't do those things. As well as that, I know you are going to ask for other masks to compare to. Realistically, he can't go and compare to every single mask on the market. I hope you appreciate that. So he's taken the most popular ones right now.
We're also a UK company, so we focus on the ones that are mass market in the UK.
Yeah.
We haven't done really any. One of them is a global brand, so it's two of them. So they are available in the US, but we look forward to testing more from the US as well.
And I think you're going to get a lot of people from the US.
And those are all the masks that we've tested.
Yeah.
We haven't tested some, and the results were way better, and so we didn't include them. Honestly, those are all the masks that we've tested. And some of them are, one of them, my gosh. Like,
it's bad, isn't it? It's horrendous. I mean, I can tell just from looking at it, because there's nothing in it. Let's explain this for a second. Some people might be thinking, how can you tell it's bad just by looking at it? So I can tell because, let's take an extreme example. Let's take the Dermalux TriWave MD. Currently, that is the most powerful LED device in the world for phototherapy. Hands down, no one comes close, and I doubt they ever will for a very long time. That's huge. I mean, if it was next to me, the base unit would be, exactly. Now, some people might see it as a negative. It's not a positive or a negative. It's just the way it is. If you want that much power, you need that much size.
Yeah.
If you want a football
stadium, you need that much size to hold the thing up, because it's that heavy with that much heat thermal.
Exactly. That many LEDs, it adds up.
And they will become much smaller in time. I'm very confident of it. Yeah. But yes, that is currently by far the best in class.
Exactly. And obviously a mask doesn't need to be that big, but you can tell from the way it's made, the materials, the thickness, the LED
and just how
spacing.
Bright it is when you look at it.
Exactly.
You can't look at those ones. But then some of these on the other end of the scale, you turn it on, you're like, is that on?
Is it even on? I've seen
that. And then when we laid them all out, but also it must be stressed that visible light is not the whole story.
No, there's near infrared as well.
You can't see near infrared, which is why some masks, when you turn them on, you're like, is it on?
Yeah.
Now, and I think it might have even been your idea. You were like, on the near infrared only modes, do put a little bit of red in so that people actually know it's even on.
Yeah.
So there is one mode and many modes on capacitor devices which look fairly dull, and that's because there's majority of near infrared which isn't visible to us.
Yeah.
But that wasn't the thing with this particular mask.
Yeah.
It just generally,
Yeah, exactly. And so the way it looks, a member of the public I don't think is experienced enough to be able to tell just from looking.
Yeah.
We've done this for long enough now to just know. It's quite obvious.
Yeah.
You've got a mask there.
Yes.
Would you be, I love the fact that your name is on your pen lid. Can you hold that up to camera? If anyone
That's kind of embarrassing.
If anyone finds this anywhere, you know who to send it to.
Young children, and everything gets name taped because they go to school and lose everything. And I thought, actually, never quite used to, because this is the third. So I have one of these sort of tablet ink writers, and if you lose the pen, you literally can't do anything. And this is the third pen that I've had to buy because I'm a little bit forgetful.
Let's have a look inside. If you could show, is there a mask inside?
Yes.
Brilliant. If you could just show people what they get inside. And I want to talk about the materials a little bit as well, and why that makes a difference.
Yes.
So the remote is there. You've got the straps that take it to your head.
We should talk a little bit about that.
Yeah.
And about the size of the battery that has to be in there.
Yeah.
And also a limitation, which is that because you're creating so much energy as light, you're obviously using a lot of power.
Exactly.
Right. Now, that battery is actually double the size of the battery that we originally started with.
Yeah.
I think it is a 3,000 milliamp hour battery.
Mm-hmm.
It will last for, I think it's 5.5 uses.
Yeah.
Which is not as many as we would like. I
Yeah.
would like it to last like 20. So
Yeah.
you will need to recharge this after 5 uses.
Mm.
And I can understand what people are like, oh, but partially it's because we're creating so much
Yes.
energy. And secondly, also to meet the 99, we had to make certain decisions.
Exactly. I would say to people, yes, this may not last 20 uses. However, you are asking for that by asking for so much power at such a low price. And you cannot have, Formula One engine power in a car that costs the same as a family hatchback for a good reason.
Yeah.
And so what I like about this is the fact that the money has been spent where it matters, trying to get the right biology into the skin. If that means you have to charge it a bit more often, so what? Because you're not going to be using it 5 times in a row anyway.
Yeah.
So what that means is you might use, let's say you use it once, just leave it on charge. Instead of putting it in a drawer, put it in a cable, put the cable in and put it in a drawer or something along those lines. And it actually makes no difference to the end usage at the end of the day, practically speaking.
No. It also takes 5 hours to charge.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, we're working on that and improving it for version in future. But
again, I don't think that's a bad thing because you're not going to be using it continuously within 5 hours.
No.
So it doesn't make a difference. I love the fact that you've just put it on as so if someone walks in on us,
we've made every effort to make this strap. It's little things. The straps as comfortable as possibly can.
Yeah.
And we were finding with a lot of masks they were actually attaching around the back of the head.
Yeah,
which is great. But then the mask then falls down.
Yes. Yeah.
So the mask is a little bit different in the fact that it then sits on the crown of the head.
Yeah.
And you can almost get it to a stage where you can just have it like that and you just put it over the head a bit more like a cap.
Yeah.
But this is also areas that we've got certain improvement for. Sorry, you asked me to get it out.
No, go for it. Go for it. That's fine. People, that's great because people can see it now.
I can now sit here with the different modes.
So talk us through the modes then. Let's have a look at what we've got options wise.
So your first mode is your anti-aging. And these modes were very much developed with you and in terms of the level and the balance of the different LED lights. So there you go. You can go through the menu. It's much more simple.
Sure. So we've got the first option here. I'll unplug the remote, actually. We can talk through. So the first option is anti-aging. How do I cycle through them? Is it M?
Yes.
Mode, yeah. We also have acne, we have healing, and we have balance. So anti-aging, correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, that is red and near infrared.
Yes.
We have acne, which is going to be mainly blue and near infrared, if I'm not mistaken.
I think you recommended
With a little bit of red.
It is mainly blue. I think it might be 100% blue 415. So the first one, anti-aging, is 633 nanometer red and 830 nanometer, so red and near infrared, to help promote anti-aging benefits.
Exactly.
The second mode, acne or target is 415 only with
just
blue light. The third one, balance, is a combination.
Yeah, I think it's called healing on here. The third one.
Sorry, I've read in the wrong order. Healing. And the next one
is balance.
Yeah. Excuse me. So I've got a combination. Now, on some of these, it has not got quite as much of the red.
Yes.
And the red is just there purely for visibility.
Yes. So I think it's important to say to people why what I personally say, too much red can be a bad thing.
Yes.
I'm just going to hold this up to camera so people can see in a little bit more detail. But essentially, if you have a lot of red in a time when things are a little bit more inflamed, there's possibility for that red light to increase the level of inflammation. And I've seen this. In fact, I have a video on my channel where I interviewed a patient who had acne and I referred her for LED phototherapy. And I said to her, look, make sure you don't get any red. I only want you to have blue and near infrared because the red will, in your case, will make the acne worse. She self-referred to a clinic. The clinic did red light, I believe, and the acne got worse. And I referred her to a different clinic then who followed my instructions, just did blue and near infrared. And immediately the acne got much, much better straight away. And actually, eventually, it's just completely cleared up. So red will, in layman's terms, increase activity. If the activity you've got to start with is inflammatory, for example, acne, what you don't want is the red to increase that inflammatory activity so there's even more. Whereas if your activity is non-inflammatory and it's just general skin going about its business and trying to be good skin, then the red will increase that activity. I won't go into too much detail as to how it does that in terms of the, atomic level mechanisms. But I think I have mentioned that previously on this channel before in previous videos. So the 4 modes.
Yeah.
When we looked at the figures and it was 1,600 and something.
Yeah.
Which
do you want to know the energy for each one?
Yeah, go for it if you've got that.
The energy for each mode. So all this information is on the product page, and down towards the bottom there is sections which open up going into details of the anti-aging, target, recovery, and balance.
Yeah.
So the anti-aging, which is the first one, which is 633 nanometer red, 830.
Yeah.
So the total flux, which is joules per centimeter squared combined, is 56.9.
Fantastic.
Of which red is 39 and near infrared is 18.
Great.
Then the target, which is blue and near infrared, the total flux is 40.
Okay.
Of which 26 is blue and 14 is near infrared.
Yeah.
Then the balance, which is blue and red, is a total flux of 26.6 and is 14 blue, 17 red, and 14.7 near infrared. So the balance is a combination of all 3.
Sure.
And then the recovery, which is the next one, total flux of 30 and a very small, this is the one with a very small amount of red, 3.9. That's just basically so you can see that it's on.
It's on, yeah.
And then the infrared is the highest of that one, which is 25.4.
Yeah. I think for most people watching this, if they are generally using this for anti-aging, my recommendation would be to stick to the anti-aging protocol. You can switch it up if you need. There is some benefit in blue as well in terms of the stimulation that goes on. There's nothing wrong with that. And you can switch it up if you wish, but anti-aging is going to be right for most people, assuming you have no skin conditions and you just want to continuously improve your skin. And I think at this price point, like I said, it is a far better investment than any kind of moisturizer, which will run out at some point. Yeah. And this will last years for just £99. In terms of where they can get a hold of this, are there any preferred retailers that you speak to or that you sell them directly?
Our business is all about making things available.
Yeah.
At a great price and through the retailers that you like. Yeah. So we will be, and we are currently on Look Fantastic. We will shortly be on Argos. We are currently on Boots. That's just range. We'll be on Amazon as well. We're on ASOS. We're on our website. And I'm sure that we'll be on Sephora very shortly as well. Over the last 12 years working with Lord Sugar, we've worked very hard to try and get into every retailer in the country. If you're in Europe, we will shortly be on Zalando, Matas in Denmark, Lyko in the Nordics, and Amazon across Europe. In America, I'm sorry, we won't be available in America for at least 6 months.
Okay.
That's from our website or direct. And that's just because we're a small company, we have to focus somewhere first.
And what about the retailers that you're selling through, like Amazon or whatever? So Amazon has a US side. Are they able to ship?
Is a very good question. I suspect actually not, because there are certain legislations in America that we just have to double check that we are definitely there first, as you can understand, because it's FDA. Electrical goods. It's also Pro 65. It's also da-da-da. So it takes a bit of time.
Yeah. Every product does. That's actually why America has a limited range of products in many categories, not just in this, even in injectable products as well.
Yeah, because
there's a lot more money to be made in regulation over there, shall we say. That's basically what it is. So I don't blame you. So in terms of when they can get a hold of this, I think by the time this video comes out, it will have launched properly in the UK. Yeah. We are recording this, I think, the week before the official launch.
Yes. So we are going to an event next week.
We are indeed.
And Lord Sugar is going to be there as well. Event in Oxford Street. Can't wait. It's going to be really cool. Launching this and some other skincare, electrical skincare products that we've been working on for a long time. This is the main one.
Yeah.
This is every buyer we've shown it to can't believe the price point that we've been able to create and the evidence that we've got in terms of total energy. all of my friends are like, when's that mask going to be available that you've been working on for years?
I've told my patients about this and they're waiting as well.
And I believe we're going to do some kind of promotion together.
Yeah. Well, if you're watching this video, the least we can do is create some sort of affiliate link. Check the description for the details of that. I don't know what it will be at the time of recording this, but it might be some sort of code or something like that. I don't know. But it will be in there. Just to help you guys out, see if we can get a little bit of money off for you to help launch this thing.
But most importantly, right? Thank you so much for your independent challenge and your challengings along the way.
Yeah.
And then reading the reports, it's just been, you put us in the right direction at the beginning, because at the beginning we were like, what's with green? What's with this color and that? And you were like, forget about it all.
Yeah.
And we were like, but consumers want choice. They want all this. And you were like, yeah, forget about it all. There's just not enough evidence on those. Yeah. The evidence is coming, right? And there's more and more evidence.
Absolutely.
And what I love about this area is there's more and more evidence coming in general about all the different other areas.
Yeah.
Like, for example, at Lux TSI, they were saying there's actually quite a lot of evidence on yellow, and that's where he was working on 20 years ago. In comparison to blue, because one of the things about yellow is there's other benefits of yellow. We're looking into that. We're looking into other parts of it as well. And now I'm waffling.
No, we've got time for waffle. This is the whole point of this podcast. But I think it's worth touching on evidence.
Yes.
Because a lot of people will say, oh, well, there's evidence for this, there's evidence for that. Most of the evidence on LED is utter garbage. And the reason for that is because most of the evidence in nutrition is garbage for the same reason, lack of controls. Yeah. And in LED, when you've got a paper that says, we achieved this outcome, and the title will be something like blue light cures this condition or whatever. And most people will just read that. Maybe if they're in the media or a journalist or a clued up consumer, they might read the abstract. But that doesn't give you anything. The abstract gives you what the authors want you to think. Whereas when you read the paper fully, which you can't do in a critically appraising way, because it's called a critical appraisal, or CASP, C-A-S-P, critical appraisal of a scientific paper.
Yeah.
You can't do that unless you have some knowledge about that field, because then you don't know which bits to criticize. And in LED, what people don't realize is people don't state the required metrics to then attribute the outcome to. They might say, oh, blue light does this. Okay, what are you defining as blue? It sounds obvious to a layman.
What wavelength, what tolerance, what peak?
It's a real question in this industry. Exactly.
What combination of...
There we go. And
is there
what
any
was
infrared in there? Is there any ultraviolet in there? Is there...
Exactly. And, when you say you irradiated the patient for 10 minutes, okay, what's the irradiation curve? Was it a continuously flat line?
How close was it?
Exactly. Did you put anything on the skin before? Was the radiation declining over time?
Yeah.
All these things. And so there is no control in the world of LED technology and in these so-called evidential papers.
Yeah.
I think you may be able to infer some kind of information that puts you more in the right direction. But until you have control on the input variables, I'm sorry, it's impossible to stay absolute cause and effect between a single wavelength and a single output or biological outcome when there's no control over that wavelength, or there's no statement of control or proof of control in that. And so I think a lot of people get duped, and this is, I guess, a message to the viewers. A lot of companies will make a mask and say this wavelength does this, and then they'll quote a paper. The consumer will just look at that web page and go, oh, it must be right because it's a paper. Most companies won't count the consumer actually clicking on that paper or finding it and reading it, let alone being able to read it and critically appraise it, which is, again, that technical term. And so,
and that's why you're here, right?
Exactly. That's why I have this channel, which is why I want to be honest.
Insane brain and ability to communicate that brain, and then is just such an incredible thing for someone like myself to meet. We were talking about medics earlier, right?
Yes.
My grandfather was a surgeon, and he dabbled in inventing some products. And I just so wish I'd been alive at the same time that he was working.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's impossible. But because working with experts is what I love doing the most.
Yeah.
And then trying to create the best value and the best return for the consumer to give to give people choice, to give to democratize these things, to make them
100%.
available, so that 300, 400, 500 pound items can be available for under £100 and less with some of our other products, so that everyone can try these out.
Exactly.
Because also, I think you said for me at the very beginning that the skin is your skin.
Yeah.
And everyone does react slightly differently as well to things.
And that's because of diet
as well.
Yeah.
So, making beauty technology accessible is really what we're about. And thank you so much for helping us get there.
My pleasure. I'm interested in what got you into LED. Obviously, you do quite a lot of different things in the beauty space. What made you think, you know what, I think there's something I can do in the LED mask market?
That is a really, really good question. Roy is partially to blame. But also from the outside, I was looking in and going, £400-500 for that. That feels like just
a rip-off. I can say it.
It feels like that's being a very exclusive product.
Yeah.
And let's have a look. Let's understand more. And
so it was a curiosity.
Yeah. And then understanding from you.
Yeah.
The requirements was amazing. And then it was just became one of the things that we start looking into. We're lucky we deal with, we do a lot of electrical devices. So we're pretty good at understanding these things. And then a curiosity becomes an obsession. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's my whole career. And I think when we first started speaking, I can just tell from your voice on the phone, I think I fried your brain.
Yeah, still got the notes. Hour download. And I'd never heard of half the technical terms that you were talking about.
I could tell you were writing things down. Like, what was he on about?
And then wishing I'd recorded the conversation so I could listen to it again later. On the phone, and then pulled in another one of my technology, my R&D developer, and we were like, right, Brandon, you've got to come listen to this next conversation because it's too much and it will really work with your brain. What I'd love to know from yourself is there any benefit of using anything on the skin before you wear the mask?
Okay, good question.
Because I'm also speaking to my amazing expert in cosmetics this afternoon.
Yeah.
And I think the theory is that nothing is best, but I would wonder if there is anything.
So there's a few different perspectives that one needs to combine for a total answer. Yeah. The first perspective is one of physics. If there is something on the skin,
it will reflect away,
exactly.
It will block, etc. So wearing suntan lotion.
Exactly. That's what you're doing. That's what
if you're wearing any moisturizer with IPF in.
So if you wear sun cream and sit in the sun, it's for a good reason.
Yes.
If you wear sun cream and sit under an LED mask, an LED device, what are you wasting your time for?
Yeah.
And so there's an element of physics of try not to use technical terms here, but essentially there's an angle of incidence where the light comes in, an angle of reflection where it comes away, and it's roughly symmetrical. And so if you introduce a medium that is able to reflect in some way, you're using this device because you want X amount of energy into your skin.
Yeah.
If more of it is being reflected away, it's now X minus Y.
Yeah.
And so
any moisturizers, which like there'd be the obvious ones, but what about like serums, oils, vitamin A?
Yeah. Exactly the same. So there may not be any biological harm. That's another perspective, and we'll get to that. But in terms of the physics, you are reducing the efficiency.
Yes.
Because you're taking a device designed to put this much energy into you, and you're going, actually, I only want that much. In which case, what are you there for?
And similarly, if you're a guy and you've got, say, acne underneath the stubble, it's best to trim as much of the stubble as you can.
If you can. I mean, there's going to be...
that can then inflame the acne as well, which is one of the reasons I don't really shave, because I have a couple of recurring spots here that whenever I shave, they come up and then they go, and then you shave again and they come up.
Yeah.
So I'm intrigued to know how this might help, but that's obviously, that's another sort of obvious
Exactly.
one.
I mean, so the physics is really key, and people need to understand, even if it's not causing you any harm and it's safe, it doesn't mean you should be doing it because you paid money for this device to put energy in your skin.
Yes.
So why not take advantage of that?
So the cleaner, the better the skin.
Absolutely. And then, clean and dry.
And then afterwards?
So afterwards, you can put something in, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yes.
But it's not necessarily going to improve the outcome of the radiation that's going in there.
Of course, because the radiation is finished.
Exactly.
Yes.
Now, the radiation, when it's going in there, it's going to act on the cells and the state that those cells are in at that particular moment in time.
Yeah.
Which means that the quality of your treatment is a lot to do with the quality of the device and your entire life up to that point.
Yeah.
And if you didn't put a little bit of cream on after, let's say you got really knackered, haggard skin, and you use this and you're starting a journey trying to improve it. If you put a little bit of moisturizer on after or some vitamin A or something like that, it's not going to suddenly give you the best skin of your life because it's still knackered and haggard. And so the metabolism of the cell is still needing some time to recover.
So diet and...
Exactly. So the best thing you can do is forget about what you do immediately before and immediately after.
Yeah.
It's about focusing on being healthy overall.
Yeah.
And that's going to get you a better result. And if you want to be healthy locally, then it's what you do regularly in the skin, not immediately after or immediately before, that makes the bigger difference in the long term.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That also then comes into skin color,
Yeah.
ethnicity.
Sure.
Because in IPL,
Yeah.
which is another area, it doesn't work
Yeah.
with certain skin tones.
Absolutely.
That's a real problem.
Yeah.
Talk me through this.
Sure. So IPL, for those that know, is intense pulsed light. It's a
Hair remove. Yeah.
Yeah. And you can use it for things like hair removal, rosacea, acne, all these kind of
Yes.
things as well. Now, when it comes to hair removal,
Yes.
specifically, a lot of people will tell you, and everyone is going to give me stick for this, but I guarantee I'm correct. They will say that melanin is the target. Melanin is not the target. It is actually the conjugated alternating structure in the carbon skeleton that we have specifically in like things like benzene. And what happens is you have delocalized electrons that give something called electromagnetic resonance stability in a pi orbital. And we're getting really technical here. Probably only chemists are going to understand what I'm talking about. Okay. What happens is the radiation destabilizes this electromagnetic resonance stability, which then destroys the entire molecule. So it's not melanin. It is a quantum scale interaction that is destabilizing resonance in pi electrons and that particular conjugation that we have in that molecule.
Okay.
And so when you understand that, you can actually target many, many things. And that's why with people with darker skin and with more melanin in there containing these pi conjugations, they are more at risk from things like this. However, that risk is also relative to what that person is eating. I'll give you a specific example. I don't wear any sun cream.
Yeah.
I used to. Nothing. And I used to actually burn, even with sun cream. Now with no sun cream, I don't burn because my diet has been completely overhauled. And I have a lot of patients who are on the same diet as me or going into this diet. And they also find they don't burn, even without sun cream.
Wow.
People who were pale, who used to go bright red and skin used to peel, now they sit in the sun with no sun cream and nothing happens. So the inflammation level that is going on in the person's body is highly linked to the kind of reactions that they have. And so that is always highly, highly linked back to the diet. Now, because you're not going to be controlling people's diet when they come in to have a treatment like laser hair removal,
yes,
there's nothing you can do to change that.
Okay.
So you just have to work with it. In terms of the efficacy,
yes,
it's as good as anything else in terms of not knowing the specific statistics of that device.
So skin color doesn't affect potential efficacy benefits of wearing a mask?
In terms of LED mask?
Yes.
Not necessarily, no. They may react differently, but that's not to do with the mask.
Right.
It's to do with that individual, biologically speaking.
So, for example, if you have really dark black skin,
yeah, you can still use it.
You can still use it. It's not like, yeah, that's pointless.
No, not at all. You can still use it because when we look at the photoreceptors, let's take
Yes.
red light as an example, which is I think the most commonly known one.
Yes.
Red light is going to be going into a specific part of the mitochondrial membrane called the electron transport chain. This is where a process called oxidative phosphorylation happens. And in one of the complexes involved in this shuttle of electrons, we have something called cytochrome C oxidase. That is not dependent on your race. That is dependent on you being a human being.
Gotcha.
So it is going to be there whether you are as pale as the shirt you're wearing,
yes,
or as dark as this Whoop band that I've got on.
Yes.
We will still have that.
Okay.
And so that...
So the melanin or the darkness of the skin doesn't like block it like you're wearing suntan lotion.
No, not at all. Not at all. Because we're targeting the skin.
Cool.
We're not targeting getting through particular layers of skincare products or anything like that.
You've told me most of this stuff before, but I just really wanted to get it on recording because I think a lot of people are going to be like, "Wow, I've got really dark skin. There's no point." Like
there will be a transient potential darkness because of the heat that's there, and also when you have this, sometimes you're going to get increased blood flow to that area, especially to a person who's already quite inflamed. And when you have that can appear a little bit darker transiently or temporarily. If you find that it's not temporary and it is getting darker, then it's not the mask, and this is key. It is that you are using the mask in an inappropriate way. Now, you may think, well, I'm just strapping it to my head and turning it on. I don't mean in terms of that. I mean in terms of you haven't sought medical supervision to see if it's right for you in the first place. Yeah. Because there is something about your skin that makes it not good for LED in the first place.
Yes.
And some consumers will get that. They will try a mask out, and they reach out to me and I say, look, don't blame the mask. And they will say things like, oh, this mask is terrible. Look at what it's done. I said, no. You've done that to yourself. It's not the mask. The mask is not capable of causing damage if used appropriately.
Yeah.
And so what's happened is you haven't figured out whether it's appropriate to use. And, as bad as I think a lot of masks are on the market, when they cause problems to people, I will stand behind the manufacturer and say it's not the manufacturer. They may be low quality, but they're not going to damage you if you use them appropriately. And the issue here is lack of education on how to use an LED mask. Mm-hmm. And because everyone is individual, you can't make a video, or I can't make a video that speaks to every single individual condition, which is the problem. So darker skinned people, they may find they get a little bit darker. It's not a mask problem. It's just unfortunate that they didn't figure out whether it's right for them to start with.
Okay.
And when you look at people who haven't got darker skin, for example, someone like yourself, if you use an LED mask, be it this or a Dermalux Triwave MD, you're going to look like you've been in the sun for maybe an hour or so as soon as you finish.
Yeah.
But then you'll go back to normal because you've got more blood coming in when there's a little bit of heat in the skin, when it's being stimulated. That is perfectly normal. And so that transient change is expected. Yeah. In fact, if it doesn't happen, I'd be worried because I think, well, what the hell have you been doing then?
Yes.
Whereas if it's getting worse and worse, something is not right. Typically, what that will mean is there's a level of inflammation in the skin which hasn't been looked at first. And if you really want to do that fully, which most people don't, but if you are, start with the diet. Because there's a reason a lot of my patients, a lot of carnivores all around the world report not wearing sun cream anymore, and they never burn. Because the level of inflammation is greatly, greatly reduced by looking at the diet as well.
Oh, there's a lot more for me to learn. Man.
I'll take you for a steak sometime.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
So I think the usage of the mask is key.
Okay.
In this particular case, my recommendation to people, if you're unsure, if you've got certain skin conditions, if you're on certain medication, you must do a little bit of research on that first. If you want to figure out whether it's safe to use on specific medication, what I would advise people to do, if anyone asks yourself as well, is to Google the name of the medication, followed by the word photosensitivity. And if that medication is linked to photosensitivity, this is probably going to be a question mark at best.
Okay.
So, for example, I had a patient reach out through someone else actually a while ago who was on certain antidepressants. And I think they were on fluoxetine, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong on that. I can't remember exactly. And before I even saw the patient or saw what the problem was, I knew they were coming to me about LED. And when I saw this medication and the combination with LED, I thought, well, they're just going to give themselves a load of pigmentation. And fair enough. It was someone whose pigmentation had gotten so much worse and so ingrained within them, and they were so upset by it. I didn't know how to phrase it, but they had done that to themselves because they hadn't properly researched it. She said, I do a lot of research. I'm really good at that stuff. But most people actually aren't. They like to think they are. But if she was, she wouldn't have done that in the first place.
So it's very important to, if you're on medication, to Google the name of the medication plus photosensitivity.
Yes.
And see what results that comes up.
Yeah, exactly. Now, if there is a paper, if there is a contraindication officially in some guidelines or prescribing guidelines, something like that, be very, very careful. Okay, if you do want to try it, do it for a lowered dose. Now, you can't control the dose on his, but you can control the time.
Yeah.
So just turn it off early.
Yeah.
And just observe. And if nothing happens, it doesn't mean, right, you just go and do the full dose now, full time. That means you then add a little bit more time. Mm-hmm. So if it does get slightly darker, you know, okay, let's stop there before it gets any worse. And I've stopped as early as I can, hopefully in a reversible stage. So if someone is unsure, then I would suggest you try this on for something like 30 seconds, and then you just stop there, and then wait another day before you try it again, or 2 days perhaps. And then you add 30 seconds. So then you go to 60 seconds, and then you just observe and you see what's what. And then you can add a minute and a half and go up and go up and go up. Try not to take, massive jumps, because you don't know where that line is, where it actually tells you, is it bad for me? Is it not? If that line is at 4 minutes and you're doing 30 seconds, 1, 1.5, 2, 3, 3.5, and you think, oh, this is useless, it's fine. And then you do 10, you don't realize you were just about to cross the line to learn what you needed to learn. And because you were impatient, you just went way past it and went to 10 minutes. And this is an issue that I find most people have no idea about. When patients come to see me, obviously I go through this, but every single time they're like, oh, I've never heard this before. No one ever told me to do that.
Yeah. So it's all about photosensitivity.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Try that out. And I think, if maybe you can add something like that to the website to help people out or something like that.
We need to look more into to guides and that kind of stuff. And I think that's one of the things we're going to have a bit of time at the launch event. We could do some filming of this.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be course. Yeah.
I'd also love to talk to you about other things.
Go for it.
That I'd rather not talk about on the podcast. Because they'll be for next year.
Anytime.
Technology related, before I caveat that.
Not the script show that you ordered earlier.
Yeah. If that's
absolutely, I'd love to.
Possible.
I'd love to. In fact, you know what? I would love to. In fact, tell people where the factory is based, where this is actually put together in the UK.
It's all made in Asia.
But then when it's packaged here, where are you based?
Yes,
personally?
where are we based? Yes, sorry. So I'm based just northwest of London in a place called Hemel Hempstead, just near St Albans.
Yeah.
We distribute everything from the UK in order to meet that 99 price point.
Of course.
In order
about Taiwan already.
And to be frank, all the best LEDs in the world these days are made in certain factories in Taiwan.
Yeah.
And then the chip manufacturers are in certain parts of Asia as well. And then the assembly of all of this, which in itself creates lead times, which is a bit challenging at this time of year. And Lord Sugar has been very kind in helping us to support this. But most importantly, the evidence, the results are what you were looking for.
And they speak for themselves. Yeah.
Thank you.
Tom, thank you so much for coming on, Dan.
Cheers,
it's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah.
And hopefully one day I can come over to the office, have a little, if I'm there before this video is out, I can do a little bit of a filming thing.
Yes.
Show people around, show people behind the scenes.
Meet the team.
And maybe tag that onto the end of this video, perhaps. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, well, we could put some of the launch event at the end of the video.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think we'll have enough time anyway.
Yeah.
After this comes out. So, yeah. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Some of the first prototypes are made here. So we've got something on the desk at the moment that we're just working on. All these electrical things that we need. We've got the 3D printers.
This is 3D printer.
And what's great now is you can actually print flexible things. So we were able to print some of the first ones. You can print rigid and they look pretty. Well, they look quite scary in some respects, but
looks like a guillotine.
They're amazing in what they can create. And then along the top here, you've got all our samples of prototypes going back 12 years, all documented and stored in their little boxes, so we can go back and refer how we've developed things over time. We've got in the back, we haven't worked on, that was for when we were making the sponge cleaner, so testing of bacteria and growing bacteria. We actually had a whole lab going on around that site at one stage. But we're on a farm, it's all. I love being out in the countryside. It's really, really nice. And then going into town to meet people like yourself.
These are all Tom's media appearances in his younger days with Lord Sugar. Might be worth